What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel. And today I'm gonna do a product review of the CL Racing F4 flight controller, and I'm gonna compare it to my usual flight controller that I use, which is the betaflight F3. So in comparison, we are gonna decide like the width, the weight, the mounting, and is the soldering difficult, or are the pads understandable or not. So first of all, we'll keep this aside, and we'll concentrate on the box. So the CL Racing F4 usually had the same box, except this Armatan Quads logo over here. This one, it did not have that. So just for a comparison, like, this has the Armatan logo. So they've also said to scan this for the manual, but this flight controller I have used, and it does not need a manual. So we are just going to open the box, and there we go, the flight controller. So this flight controller has pre-soft mounted rubber grommets, as you can see on the four corners. What I like about this flight controller over any other flight controller is that it has these pads, rather than holes that the betaflight has. So if you just carefully see, there are no wire holes in it. There are only pads. Just bring it a bit closer so you can see there are only pads over here. Whereas if you keep this aside and you see the betaflight F3, there are pin out holes over there, on the left hand side, and in the bottom you can see there are pin out holes. Keeping that aside, okay, so I'll the weight wise, this weighs around 8 grams, and the betaflight F3 weighs around 10 grams. This is for those who want their setup to be ultra light. I'm a freestyler, so weight has to be a bit more for me, as I can use the momentum. So next thing we are going to do about the SD card slot, which is underneath here, which has the QC pass sticker. So guys, as you can see, this is a completely uh, enclosed case. So there is no way for the SD card to pop out if you crash. Whereas if you see over here, as soon as you insert the SD card, this side half of the SD card is exposed, so you have to put a piece of double-sided tape over this, uh, which holds the SD card, and but it's difficult to remove in the future for black box logging. One more special thing that this flight controller has is that it has camera control. Actually, it's labeled somewhere over here. Yep, over here it's labeled the first pad over here. If you can see, guys, the first pad over there, that's camera control. So that's something new. It was there in previous flight controllers and cameras before, but nobody recognized it till now. That feature is really helpful. You can use your OSD through your radio, even if it's like how you use the betaflight OSD. Is the same way you can use the OSD butt of the camera. The next thing that I don't like about the betaflight F3 is that the battery is mounted ground on the top side, and positive on the underside. So while resoldering or while doing any stuff, it becomes very difficult. Also, there are signal pads on the top, and ESC main pads on the bottom. So you have to either desolder your motor or remove the front two motor to flip the board, and that's a pain in the ass. If you see over here, the all the pads are on the top, apart just two pads which are the battery pads, which are below, and two UART 6 pads which are here. but still we have one of the UARTs above and S bus above. Why I am putting light on the UARTs is because you need these UARTs for smart audio, and also if you want crossfire telemetry. So one good thing is there, like this connector is over here for the 4-in-1 ESC. You get a wire lead also separately. There is a bind button, and you can like see this OSD chip over here which runs your on-screen display. These two are filters. I don't know if you guys can see, but let me bring it closer. These two are the video filters. So regarding filter, what I was talking about is that in Betaflight F3 I usually needed a capacitor for removing any video peaks which came into being, and without a capacitor or very safe and secure and non-conductive RF connection, then only you had a clear on-screen display without those lines coming in. But in the CL Racing F4 flight controller, that's not the case. I tried it without the capacitor, and guess what, it worked completely. The video was as dead clear, so I'm very happy about that. Also, if you guys can see the thickness of these boards in comparison, due to the bigger chip over here of the SD card extruding outside underneath over here, and this transistor existing outside, mounting becomes a bit difficult. These things could touch and short out, but if you just see over here, everything is sleek. The only thing that's protruding are these rubber grommets, and which are completely insulated, and I'm really happy with that. The main F4 chip is underneath over here. The main processor is over here. The one thing is very awesome which these guys have done is they have put the boot button right next to the USB, whereas in the Betaflight F3, if you have mounted this like arrow facing forward, the boot button comes over here on the top, which is sometimes difficult to access. But if you see over here, yes, just a minute, yes, but if you see in this way, it's right over here, the boot button, so you don't need to do anything to go to the boot button. It's damn simple. So that was there. The weight differed, as I told you. The next thing that I want to talk about is it's a big issue with the Betaflight F3. I have not tried the F4 Betaflight F4. I'll try that soon. The only issue with this flight controller is that the ground pads, each and every ground pad is very very difficult to solder. The temperature of the soldering iron has to be 450 or above. As I use TS100, it's not above 400, so soldering the ground pads is a pain in the butt in this flight controller. If you guys can see these two ESC pads, you can see the ground is not that nicely soldered, but the positive is perfectly shining. So the ground pads have a big issue in the Betaflight F3, whereas when I soldered this flight controller, there was no such as issue that I was facing while soldering this flight controller. So I'm really happy about that. Also, we can find out over here, everything is labeled perfectly. Like over here, everything is labeled on the underside of the board, so that is a very big issue. Like you have to constantly flip the board upside down. As you can see writings over here, you have to constantly flip the board upside down, but over here everything is written below the each and every pad. So practically you don't need a manual for this flight controller, but you need a manual for this one, the Betaflight F3. So okay guys, so now I'll wrap it up. for you. And the conclusion that I come to is that the CL Racing F4 in my way is much better than the Betaflight F3, and this is going to be my go-to flight controller. Okay, I'll just go through the specs once more. This has an inbuilt PDB, 5 volt, 9 volt regulator and 12 volt regulator. It has a flight controller. It also has on-screen display, so it's a 3-in-1 flight controller, which helps in removing the mess. Okay, so guys, this was the specs. Now you decide which flight controller you want. According to me, the CL Racing F4 is much better, and actually, to my surprise, it's much cheaper than the Betaflight F4 or the Betaflight F3. So okay guys, thanks a lot for seeing the video. If you like it, give me a thumbs up. uh, Please subscribe and comment. You can also find me on Instagram. Thank you guys, see you later.